It's great for all sorts of recipes, but it's an all-new ball. Herbs and seasonings are just a bonus. They are not what's going to add a little bit already, but I just wanted to let you know that if you really want to be able to see what's going on, to help with those hard water stains.
She's dancing.
It's going to take at least 30 minutes or so for this to cool down. No pressure at all on here. I'll take our little jiggler. Hey friends, I'm so excited that you are here with me. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Angela and I am the Inquisitive Farmwife. You never really know what I'm going to get into, but right now we're in the downstairs kitchen and we're going to be canning. It is part of the Canary Collaboration. If you don't know what Canary is, then let me tell you just a little bit about it. It's where a great group of YouTubers get together, and every single day for the month of January, we are here to bring you some great canning ideas and recipes, whether it's something simple or something a little more complex. In order to find all of these great videos, you'll want to go over to Lisa, our host over at Sutton's Days. She will have a playlist where you can see all the channels that have posted videos up until that day. You don't have the special logo. I'll have it on my thumbnail and I'll probably post it up here somewhere too. That means we are part of the Canary Collaboration. The term Canary is an amazing one that a lot of people like to jump on and do. That's great. We love seeing all sorts of canners. But if you want to make sure you're part of this collaboration and that you're going to see a safe recipe, look for the special logo. Today, I am bringing you Chipotle beef. I need to get some beef canned and on my shelves. I do personally want to make just some plain beef, but I wanted to bring you guys something just a little bit different. I have last year's beef that I need to get through, and I have about 10 pounds worth of beef. So some of this I will be canning as just beef in a jar. And for the rest, we're going to together make the Chipotle beef. It's great for all sorts of recipes, but it's an all-new book of canning from Ball, and you will see a link to that down below for Amazon if you want to get one yourself, if you don't already have it. I'm super excited to do this with you, so let's quit chatting and let's get to chopping. So I told you that I had about 10 pounds of beef. I have in my head done the math. The recipe calls for 2 pounds of beef. That gets you 2 quarts, which if you're not familiar, this is a quart-sized jar. This is what we're going to be using today. I have washed up 8 of them just in case, because I want to make sure I have an extra jar. You never know. And we've got those washed and set back here on the counter behind us. I'll get to those in just a little bit. First, I want to start prepping the ingredients. So basically what we're going to do is take this recipe and divide it in half and then multiply it by 7. Or you can just do the math to 3.5. I hope that math makes sense to you. Don't worry. In the book, it has the full recipe of how to make just 2 quarts or 4 pints. Everybody has their own way of how they like to chop their onions. I'm going to have slices because I think this will be really good for some, maybe some soft tacos with, or some enchiladas or some sort of casserole. And I just kind of want to have longer, thinner slices of onion. Now remember, we're going to pressure can this. And so your onions are going to get good and cooked. So it doesn't specify what size you have to make the onions. It just says to slice them. I don't know about you, but I love to have ready meals on the shelf on quick days. I'm actually participating in the January Pantry Challenge. Lisa has been talking to us for several years about doing pantry preparedness. And for me, canning is one of those things. Now this was one quite large onion, and I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, it's a potent one too. Looks like we have about half of what we need already. So I'm going to take this other large onion, and that might just get us what we need for this recipe. I do not want to let all this goodness go. If you notice, I'm putting all of the skins and the ends of the onion off to the side. That's because to make amazing broth, you want to save all your bits and pieces. We aren't going for perfection. We're just going for flavor. So if your onion slices are off just a little bit, it's not going to matter. We're not cooking for looking. We're cooking for eating. We're at 6 cups, so I'm going to do one of my smaller onions, and I think that'll get us right where we need to go. But whoo, I tell you what, these onions are trying to make me cry. For this next bit of prep, I decided to go ahead and put on some washable gloves because we're going to be using our Chipotle peppers. They can be hot. They are actually a jalapeno pepper that has been smoked, from my understanding. Now we're going to need about 7 of these. So let's see if I've got that many in this jar. So about the pantry challenge, the reason I came up with this recipe is because it is stuff I had on hand. I actually had planned to make something a little bit different, but I didn't want to break my pantry challenge and go to the grocery store already. This happens to be something that I have had in my pantry for a while. I like to keep a well-stocked pantry. So we're going to just kind of chop these up. And you want to kind of keep some of that adobo sauce. I'm going to add this right on top of our onions because we're going to put all this together into my soapy sink water. I try to always have my sink ready with hot soapy water so that I can wash things off. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. I went ahead and I grabbed myself a bag so that I could put my onion scraps in there so I could get a new bag started for the new year for my broth. I'm going to go ahead and add our seasonings in here. I'm choosing to use canning salt. 7 teaspoons would be 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon, so 2 tablespoons plus a teaspoon. You're supposed to add in oregano, but the broth that I'm using today has a lot of oregano in it, and so I don't want that to be overpowering, so I'm going to leave that ingredient out. It will not affect the safety in any way, I promise. We do not have fresh garlic, but if you do, make sure you grab 8. Yes, that's 8 cloves for the for a regular single batch recipe. 1 clove is equal to 1/4 teaspoon of the granulated garlic powder. Okay, so do your math according to how many, like if you're going to double the batch, etc. So that's 4 cloves of garlic per jar. So that would be actually 1 teaspoon of garlic per jar. 3, 6 plus a little more makes our 7. Okay, so we've got our garlic in there. And the last thing we need is cilantro. Again, I don't have any fresh. It's not the time of year here to grow it. And what I can get in the store is kind of iffy anyway, even if I wanted to get to the store. So we're not going to do that. So we're going to use some store-bought dehydrated. Freeze-dried is a different way. Freeze-dried, you would use equal amounts. Dehydrated, you use about half because it shrinks down and it's crunched up. But when you freeze dry, at least at home, your leaves, you can leave them whole and you get a better measurement. So anyway, that's a little tidbit for you too. And there we go. Sometimes cilantro can taste like soap to people. If you don't want it, leave it out. Exchange it for parsley. It will give it the color, but a totally different flavor. All right, that is it for our seasonings. I'm going to grab my scale. And I'm going to weigh out 7 pounds of meat. So first thing I need to do is zero out my bowl. And then these are usually not quite a pound. This is beef that I grew myself, and my butcher usually does a really good job of trimming it out for me, and I don't have to usually do a whole lot. You just want to make sure that your chunks are under 2 pounds, or guys, I can't talk today. They're under a 2-inch cut piece. So if any of this is missed, or you feel like it is pretty gristly and not a lot of meat and it's not going to be worth your time, take pieces like this out. Feed them as a treat to the farm animals. Give your guard dogs a treat. Okay, I just don't want any of these bits in there. Just right at 7 pounds. Just a quick check. We're going to trim off any really bad fat bits. You can leave a little fat in there because it will get tenderized in the process. My husband hates any sort of fat whatsoever, so I do try to trim it, especially like the silver skin. You don't want that in there. Now, a lot of people will take a brisket and trim it up, and that works really well too, or a roast. I am just taking advantage of what I already have in the freezer, and I get all the pieces of everything when we have our cow butchered. So if you know a farmer and you can get your own meat and choose how it's butchered, make sure you get that stew meat. Now, I chose to go ahead and mix this all together. I just want to make sure all the pieces are separated. You know, when you go to put things in the jars, sometimes you have to follow the directions exactly. And sometimes it's okay. Like if you get your seasonings out of order, it's going to be okay. Don't stress that much about canning. It's not that complicated. Yes, there are reasons why we have steps in things, but if you notice, oh shoot, I forgot the salt can be added. It's okay. The project is not ruined. Whoops. I want to get a good coating on everything, and so that's what I'm going to do. But it is quite obvious this is not going to fit in this bowl. So I'm going to clean this out. I'm going to grab a bigger bowl. I'm going to get in there with my hands because those are the tools God gave me. And this way I know that all the herbs and all the onions, everything is going to get mixed in really well. Could you, in theory, put your garlic cloves, your onion slices, and all that stuff in each jar individually, separately? Sure you could. But today, I am doing it like this. As long as you are using the proper time when you go to pressure can and you're using the equivalent amount of ingredients, you're good. Herbs and seasonings are just a bonus. They are not what's going to make it safe, but you do have to be cautious about, your ratio of things. So we have the proper amount of poundage of meat to our seasonings and our vegetable and all those things. So we are good. Our favorite part. Let's jar it up. Doesn't get any more simple than this, guys. I've kept my gloves on, and we are just going to pack this in our 7 jars. We're going to want to leave a 1-inch headspace I like using the wide mouth jars. Just makes it easier to get the meat in and then again back out. I don't want to shove in here too far. I don't want it a super tightly packed, but I don't want a super loosely packed too. So, you know, that just clarifies it completely, doesn't it? Sometimes these recipes aren't exact on what we think they're going to be. You know, the recipe might say it makes 4 pints or something and you get 5 or you get 3. So sometimes they're not exact. I have found that out with ball, unfortunately. We're going to be pretty darn close. No, guys, we're going to get 6. We're going to get 6. I thought we would get 7. It's still enough to make your canner go. You only need to have 2 quarts to make a canner load. If I wanted to go ahead and get up there and get my 7th jar, what I could do is grab myself another pound of meat, grab myself another adobo, you know, some onion, all that stuff, and I could make a 7th jar. But I don't know that I want to do that today. I'm just going to take and fill this up. Just give it a second to settle in. I'm going to poke it around, make sure it gets down in all the places. And we're going to leave at least an inch headspace here because this beef is raw packed. And because it is raw packed, it will make its own broth. Gotta shut that off. On the stove, I've got some water going so that my lids can be warming up. Depending on what type of lid you use, depends on whether or not you'll have to do that step. Now, some people will just go around the sides of the jar, but I like to go all the way through in all the spots to make sure that I've got this really good and debubbled. Because the last thing you want to do is have an issue. Meat's expensive, y'all. I've got some vinegar here. This is white distilled vinegar and a very clean, just used cloth, or unused cloth, just now using it. And I'm going to go around this ring because when we debubbled, we made a mess. So I'm just going to make sure we've got those rings good and clean. And you're probably wondering, why didn't you heat any of this up? Because I'm not heating up my canner either. I want everything to be pretty much room temperature. So I would call this a cold product, cold food, cold jar, cold canner. We're just going to have everything kind of at room temperature. And that way when it's all at the same temperature, you won't have any jar breakage or unwanted issues. 4 jars canning lids. So I will use canning lids that I get with my jars. But because these are not new jars, I'm going to be using my 4 jars lids today. And it just so happens that 4 jars is one of the sponsors of Canuary. Along with Lisa Sutton over at Sutton's Days, 4 jars will be giving away some really amazing things. We talked about that a little bit already, but I just wanted to let you know that if you are in need of some canning jars, 4 jars is a great company that I have had really good success with, and you can get some lids of your own at a 10% discount by using Farmwife 10. Today, I'll be using my trusty Presto stovetop canner. And it's an empty canner, no water in it. I've grabbed water from the tap that is just lukewarm, and I'm going to pour it in. And I can never remember. I have my book up there in the cabinet somewhere. Is it 2, 3, or 4 quarts? So I was smart enough, and if you remember from last year, I made a mark so I know how deep this needs to go. Let's see. Nope, not there yet. Don't forget to put your insert in. You don't want those jars touching the bottom. Now all we do is put the jars in the canner. Before I put the lid on, I've got to do some inspecting. We need to make sure that the ring fits nicely, that it's not cracked. We want to make sure this little tab is movable. And this hole right here, I need to be able to see you. I see you. Can you see me? No, probably not. There are arrows on here that we need to line up. And look, I've turned this backwards. I really want to be able to see what's going on. So next, all I need to do is turn this on probably about a medium high. If this starts venting, then we will time it for 10 minutes before you either use your weighted gauge or your dial gauge to pressure cook this at 10 or 11 pounds of pressure for my altitude for 90 minutes. Because it's meat, and meat is 90 minutes for quarts. Guys, I almost forgot. Good thing we hadn't gotten this going yet. You need to put a splash of vinegar in your water. Don't touch the lids. Just a little bit into the water to help with those hard water stains. Around here, they're inevitable anyway, but I do everything I can to try to prevent them. Okay, friends, I wanted to show you. We have, can you see that steam? A nice heavy steam is coming out. We have our timer set for 10 minutes. So I have an option. Yes, I know this looks very, very dirty, but you know, we use our canner. It is well loved and it's got water spots. It's what it is. We're going to look past that for a second and we're going to talk about this, what we see right here. These are the different things that I can place on here. This is what came with my canner. This is what I used for many years, and I would always use the dial gauge. But since then, I got myself a little jiggler. Now, I made the mistake one day of leaving both of these on there, and don't do that. That's 15-pound weight. I need a 10-pound weight for my area. So I'm going to put our little hula dancer on there. She's going to do her thing. This has popped up. We're ready to start really building the pressure here. And so once this gets up to 10 pounds pressure, that's when we're going to start our 90-minute timer. Now she's going to dance for me so that I can go just around the corner and sit in a little bit more comfortable chair and come and check on it every few minutes rather than sitting here and staring at it the entire 90 minutes. We've got a medium-high heat going. I know my stove well enough that I'm going to go ahead and turn this down a bit. And probably before it's all over, I'll be over here. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll listen for our little hula dancer and we'll let it do its thing. You can kind of start to hear a little bit of a pattern coming from our spout. Pressure is building. Ain't she cute? She's dancing. Look at her go, our little hula girl. A nice, gentle rock is all you need. My timer has gone off, and it's now officially time for the little hula dancer to get her break. So I'm going to just shut off the heat and walk away for just a little bit because it's going to take at least 30 minutes or so for this to cool down enough to open up the canner. So while that goes down, I'm going to go out. It's time to do evening chores. All right, friends, I'm back from doing chores, and it is now time to open up our canner. It has completely zeroed out, no pressure at all on here. I'll take our little jiggler off. I'm going to put that weight right back on top there just so I don't lose it. I don't want to take that chance of losing it. I'm going to turn the canner, and then as I lift it, I'm going to lift it up away from my face so the steam goes up under here. And I'm just going to open it and let it sit just cracked, just like this, for about 5 to 10 minutes so that things can kind of regulate a little bit more before we take the jars out of the canner. Okay, our 5 minutes is up. And again, away, dropping water away from my face. Put that lid, just set it in the sink to let everything get nice and cool before I start washing anything. And now we are going to get our jars out. But I have to show you something, guys. We most definitely had some siphoning, okay? I am very sad about that, but I can't say I'm 100% surprised because beef will make its own juice. But I was following the directions and put in the water line to the 1-inch mark. What this means now is we're just going to have to really scrub these jars before we put them in storage. But I'm still going to let them see if they seal, because if they do seal, they will still be safe to have on the shelf. And I believe it looks like they have sealed, but I'm going to give it that 12 to 24 hour mark, and then we'll clean them really, really well. And I'll do the same thing here. Once this completely cools down, I'll need to clean this out. Friends, we're back. It is the next day. It has been more than 12, less than 24 hours. And I went ahead and checked. As expected, all 6 jars sealed. So I'm super excited about that, although my family probably would have appreciated if I had to put one in the refrigerator and use right away. We've got these gloves. I'm going to go ahead and use them because they did get that grease on the outside of them, and I know that it is because of the broth. Let me show you something. Remember how I said any leftover beef I was just going to can to have on the shelf? Because we like to make a very quick beef and noodles and things like that, beef salad sandwiches. And I wanted to show you, this had nothing but salt in it. I just put a little salt for flavor, and it made its own broth, and I believe that is exactly what happened here. So my gut told me I probably should have just put in part of the broth, or I could have possibly even raw packed it. But it's so important just to follow the directions, especially as a beginner canner. So I'm going to reread everything and make sure that I did it right. And you know what? Together, we learn these mistakes. We learn from each other. And that's what this collaboration is all about, is encouraging each other to get better at these skills. What I have here is some warm soapy water. You don't need to go crazy and get hot soapy water. Warm is perfectly fine. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and sneak these into the water. I've got my rag in here. We'll do the rings in a bit. And I'm going to do about half of them. I don't want to overfill my sink. I'm just wanting to get some of this overflow off. It's an excellent time for me to be able to check and make sure it really did seal. I'm going to get right up under there. I'm not pushing hard, but I'm going to take this rag and I'm going to go under the lip and around where all the rings were, and we want to get any of that off. We do not want rancid oil on our shelf to attract critters, or it's nasty. Okay, so let's get some good soapy water and we're going to rinse these off. I'm going to throw in these rings, get them washed up. If you wash and dry these right away, they're not going to rust on you, and you can use them for many canning sessions to come. Put them in the sink, let them soak. Forget about them on the drying rack. They'll get rusty. Ask me how I know. All right, now I'm going to drain our soapy water. I turn on the hot water. I'm going to kind of rinse some of this out. Get all that soapy stuff off while my water starts to heat up. Rinse out my sink, all that possible soap and fat. It's starting to warm up. I don't want it hot, I just want it warm. We're going to plug the sink, and we're going to add in some vinegar. Just a couple of glugs. It doesn't have to be a lot. This step is completely optional. I'm doing it today because of two reasons. One, they were very, very greasy, and I just want to make sure I get all that grease off. Two, it's going to make my jar shiny and pretty. Quick rinse. And they're going to go over here to our drying mat. And just because I don't like that water spot, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the top. And that is it for today's video. I hope that you are inspired. I hope you learned something new. And I hope that you get a conversation started with me down in the comments below. Have you made this before? Have you tried it? What kind of things happened to you that did or did not happen to me? I want to know down below. Until next time, friends, bye for now.